Now, as you all know, I'm a very big skeptic of Bob Iger. I never really fully supported him, nor did I ever really fully support Bob Chapek. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but lately Bob Iger has been failure after failure after failure, and it's only been getting worse and worse as we move along throughout 2023. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and let's get right into exactly what's going on here with Bob Iger and Indiana Jones 5, and specifically the box office scenario. Now, we know that the box office collapse is only getting worse as we move along here, and with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 on the horizon, that's really going to create a big halt for any kind of box office returns and movement. That's really going to bring an end to any results for Indy 5 coming in. Now, with that being said, what's interesting about Bob Iger is that this is somebody that has been heavily upselling Indy 5, has been really overestimating things like how it's going to get nearly $1 billion at the box office worldwide, and then eventually reverting and saying how, yeah, it'll get close to $1 billion now, which could range anywhere from this to that, etc., etc. Now, what's interesting, though, is what Bob Iger had to unveil about Indiana Jones 5. A very big bombshell piece related to the Dial of Destiny and what was happening behind the scenes, and specifically how this does include Kathleen Kennedy and confirm a couple of things that have been going on behind closed doors over at Disney/Lucasfilm. Now, with Disney CEO Bob Iger currently having many issues with Indy 5 and its box office turnout, he recently addressed something of significance to the entire world. Iger delivered the following. Now, while Lucasfilm was developing our 5th Indy film, one of our biggest flaws, he says, was that we had too many creative roadblocks along the process between Mr. Mangold and those like Kathy and Steven, who were also involved in the creative field. We were also welcome to have Phoebe contribute to the story. However, one of our biggest mistakes with the film, perhaps looking back, was over-budgeting this movie, as we had original plans to keep the budget of this film, get this, around the $200 million range. However, Kathy insisted it was necessary to fund an upwards amount of $100 million extra to properly make this film with the proper set builds and CGI sequences that were heavily requested. We did end up accepting these requests, which is something we perhaps should have steered clear from before we agreed. Now, let me pause here. Now, what Bob Iger is basically saying here, and what he is really putting out there, that is the best way to translate this, is that they essentially allowed Kathleen Kennedy to do whatever she wanted to do. She got what she wanted. She kept on insisting time and time again that she needed an extra $100 million to really make this film look amazing, to make it look flawless. And in reality, guys, I don't know where that money went. Do you? Because when you watch Indy 5, the CGI scenes are heavily flawed. They are not nearly completed in certain shots, and the deepfake technology is really not even as good as the Luke Skywalker deepfake scenarios or the scenes in the Book of Boba Fett. So what in the world were they thinking by handing over Kathleen Kennedy $100 million extra to budget this thing properly, in their eyes at least, and to also really kind of just make the film look better through CGI and proper set builds in their minds? This is absolutely crazy, and it just goes to show you that Bob Iger does not know what in the world he is doing. If I were him, I would not even trust Kathleen Kennedy after the failure of Solo, The Last Jedi, through the fan division of Star Wars, and everything that has happened with the Willow series, and that's why they canceled it, by the way. Yet another failure. So it goes to show you that Bob Iger is to blame here as well, as much as Kathleen Kennedy. They both are to heavily blame when it comes to Indy 5, Star Wars, Willow, and even where Marvel is heading right now. It's unfortunate, but it's true. Even the MCU is suffering the same fate, or a similar fate as Star Wars, slowly but surely, as of course by Bob Iger. Moving on. On top of this, he goes on to elaborate further. But we did have a major loss of expensive scenes that ended up getting deleted by Mrs. Kennedy and Mr. Mangold, working on this film that resulted in a big financial loss on our end that only made things harder for the cast and the crew, having higher expectations for the project during and after principal photography. That was one of our bad calls by over-budgeting this project, and we feel it is posing a risk of us not meeting our box office expectations. However, we do remain optimistic that we will slowly inch closer to the 900 million range now worldwide, which is slightly off from our initial 1 billion goal to make it one of the most successful Lucasfilm projects in years. We only hope for the best, and we thank everyone for checking out Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny. We are still discussing sequels at this time to see where this all leads, and we value our future with this franchise. Thank you all very much. Now, am I the only one here that thinks Bob Iger is crazy to still be talking about an Indiana Jones 5 sequel? I don't know about you guys, but there's no way an Indiana Jones sequel or Indiana Jones 5 sequel is going to see the light of day. It's just not happening. They can have this in development as long as they want, and I've said this before too, just yesterday, that they can keep this in development for years upon years and just claim that they're still working on it, when in reality they're only talking about it, brainstorming ideas, stuff like that. I don't see it happening. Now, we know one other thing about this whole scenario, and we did talk about this a couple of days ago, that Bob Iger finally now confirmed and brought to the forefront, is that yeah, Kennedy did get an extra 100 million for this project. Almost like it was stealing candy from a baby. She literally just said, Bob Iger, I need 100 million more for this movie. Okay, Kathy, here you go. That's basically how quick the exchange really was, and that was a very big mistake on Disney's end. If I were them, they should have gotten people involved that understood what Indiana Jones really is all about, and how it's not quite really as popular as they believe it is with the newer generation also. It was a mixture of things that are really leading it to fail at the box office. It's Phoebe Waller-Brideg and how she's so unlikable in this movie. It's also the fact that we have an old Indiana Jones and how ridiculous it may come across as well as the storytelling, very lackluster. Kathleen Kennedy doing her thing with the movie, as well as, let's not forget, there's of course a newer generation that knows nothing about Indiana Jones. And that's also another big problem about this, is that there's a lot of people out there that just saw this movie and reported back to me and said that they've never even seen the previous 4 films, that they just checked this movie out just for the sake of checking it out because it looked like a fun flick, almost, like a normal popcorn movie. And that's how the newer generation sees this thing, and I think that's also playing a heavy role too in the box office numbers. So, anyways, I'm really intrigued to see where this all leads. I mean, we're standing at 150 something million right now worldwide. I don't know where Bob Iger gets these claims that he thinks that they're going to inch closer over time to that 900 million range now. Notice how he's dialing back, no pun intended, from 1 bill to 900 mil. It's interesting. It's a very interesting observation. So guys, drop a comment below. Fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. And I will catch you guys next time.